Hey kids, welcome back to 396 Guitars. We are working on a really old guitar that came into the shop from a good client that is in trouble, and we're going to do our best to make it work again. I'm going to try to give you some backstory on this instrument. First things first, it's about 100 years old. It has been in this client's family for every bit of that time. A great aunt, I believe. It was back in the early 1900s, in the 19 teens, we think. There's nothing in it. There's no numbers, there's no paperwork, there's nothing. Just the family history, as it were. So the instrument came to me in this condition. It's not bad. We're thinking it was probably out of Montgomery Ward catalog or a Sears and Roebuck catalog, what would be called or considered a parlor guitar. Whatever that means, go back and search it yourselves. It has been played. It's got some wear on it. It came to me with no saddle in it. There's actually one of the first things I tried to do, the nut, all the bridge pins, and this piece of, believe it or not, it's a piece of fret that goes in there, was in a plastic baggie, and the instrument. We did put new tuners on it because in the interim of working on this guitar, I was waiting for something, and I said, okay, well, he gave me these tuners, and he wanted to see if they would work. It took some fab, but I got them to work. 100-year-old guitar. Who knew you could find something that, it took a little bit of blackjack magic, but I got them in there and they're working. The main thing with this instrument, and this is going to be a little unsettling, when I first got it, I noticed there was no nut. Like I said, the nut, the bridge pins, and this piece of fret wire was in a plastic baggie, and that's how I got the instrument. And he said, what can you do with it? Can you make it play again? And he thought it would just be put this in, put the nut on, string it up, and, make it play. Well, no. The first thing that I noticed right away as I was puzzling over the guitar for several days, all I did was go, okay, that's a piece of fret. I'm going to see if that's where it belongs, because the route for it was, well, exactly that length, and that's where it fit right down in there. That's for much later when we address the real issue. Turning the guitar around and checking every little thing on it as much as I could. All the little cracks that I noticed. For the most part, the body's in really good condition, and it's holding together really well for being as old as it is. But I noticed some space under the fretboard, especially on the top side as you're holding it in playing position. And sure enough, I took a feeler gauge, like a 3/1000 feeler gauge, and yeah, it was sliding in there everywhere. And just by moving it around in there, I could feel the glue coming loose. Well, the client was blissfully unaware of this issue, and it started up here. It was attached very little right there, and this whole area was actually loose. And it took very little coaxing to get that off. So that's where we're at today. I have made a top call to go on top of the fretboard. I am going to put that on there. We are going to re-glue it. Now, off camera, I have done a lot of work on this fretboard. It took very little coaxing to get it off. I'll tell you exactly what I used. As I said, when I started using the feeler gauge and realized there was so much gap, especially right in the middle, and the fretboard itself is actually bowed this way. And that's not uncommon. I've taken fretboards off of, Stratocasters, Tellys, what have you. But, once you get them off of there, they're going to have, they're going to do what they're going to do. It's wood. And this happens to be 100-year-old, fretboard. what I did was I have a whole bunch of these type of, they're actually pallet, they call them pallet knives. They're super, super thin and they're bendy. And I just started working it little by little. And this one popped right off with, this end was only attached like right at the first fret position. And just monkeying with a 3 or 4 thousandths feeler gauge, it popped right off. It was really literally only attached here and right here. And I took one of those knives and I started working it a little bit. I was putting slight up pressure here and it just popped right off. I mean, it took almost no coaxing. When you smell it, it smells like hide glue, and that's what it would have used. You know, they used that stuff all the way up into the 60s, 50s and 60s. I have sanded this smooth with I started with 800 and went to 1,000 grit and just cleaned it up. I'm not trying to remove everything, only for fitment. And I did the same thing on this side, just very lightly with 800 and a sanding block, and just cleaned it up because somebody knew that there was an issue with it. They tried to put rubber cement in some of the places where, and figured that would hold it. No, of course not. You need something a little more stringent. I am not going to use hide glue. I'm going to use Quick Bond Ultimate. It is the shit. It's a little forgiving, a lot more forgiving than hide glue. Hide glue, you put it on, you got about 5 minutes before it starts getting so tacky that you can't position your stuff. This will give me about 15 minutes before it gets so tacky that it won't kind of lubricating move. And that's what we need, because it's going to take a little positioning. And I'll tell you, I know there's a lot of talking in this, because once we get to it, it's really just going to be kind of putting some glue on and my jig and I just use cardboard. Leather is the best. I just don't happen to have any in the shop right now. I used it on another job and it's sitting over there. So I had a whole bunch of them. But cardboard will work. You put the caul on the bottom, just something to, you know, keep the clamp from digging into the wood wherever you're using the clamp. We're going to use a couple of wood clamps here. I've got some, show you what we're using. You know, good old fashioned. And I use these. I like them. They're good, and they're adjustable. I can get one in here, one right here, the 2 metal ones, and then the 2 wooden ones are going to go here. And I think I'm going to use, I think I needed one. I've already mocked up the clamping situation. It takes a while to get them. You definitely don't want to start slopping glue on there and then learning how to put your clamps on. You want to mock up your clamp positioning and check fitment before you actually get to putting the glue on there, because once you do it, yep, once you buy a prize, it's yours to keep, sort of thing. It has got a couple of issues. Over time, 100 years, it has shrunk this way, the fretboard. And down here, it fits beautifully. Between the 3rd and 7th fret, there's just the slightest little bit of lip on the side of the neck. I talked with the client. I said, listen, I can try to shave that down. The answer was no, don't do that. Let's just get it on there and make it play. It will be totally playable, and it's almost not noticeable. You can just feel slightly. It's about a half a millimeter here, and I might be able to sand it down and smooth it over, and then up here too. So it's got a little bit of this thing going on, and there's not a lot you can do with that. It is what it is. So we are going to proceed, and the first step is going to be, one last final time, I am going to use basically some naphtha. I just want to clean this if there's any dust left on it from sanding, and the back of the fretboard. And naphtha, it's really benign stuff. It's lighter fluid basically. And this will take off any residual sanding, dust, dirt, what have you, and it almost instantly, see some came off, almost instantly evaporates, and it leaves no problem on the mating surface as far as glue sticking. You do the same sort of process when you're putting paint. A lot of that is just dye coming out of the wood, but there's no more dust left that's going to give us any kind of a problem. 100-year-old guitar. Who would have thunk it? And it's actually in really good shape. I mean, all things considered. Is it going to be perfect when we get done? No, probably not. But we're going to try to make it play and give it back to the family. And it's been in their family for literally 100 years. It's a couple of generations. It's his great aunt. I'm going to call that good because I know all of the wood dust, sanding dust has come off. I'm going to let that, I'm going to pause and just let that evaporate. And then when we come back, we're going to start putting some glue on, both surfaces, get it on there. I have a little brush to move the glue around. You want to get it right to the edges on both surfaces, and a damp cloth for squeeze out, which is going to come out all around it. Hopefully that'll tell me. I got a cup to put my glue in, and of course the glue. We'll be right back. All right, time to get to it. So what we're going to do first is just put a little bit on this surface, get it swooshed around. All right. I have some glue in the cup here. And it's important to get this everywhere that you're going to be gluing. Not overdo it. Just a thin coat everywhere you're going to mate. You're going to mate these two surfaces together. And hopefully everything will go well. Try to keep it off the edges as much as you can, but right up to the edges is what I'm shooting for. You're just kind of painting it on. This stuff starts to get tacky pretty quickly. Hide glue, it would already started. We're going to get maybe 10 minutes of actual working time here before it's critical. All right. And once you're happy with that, move on to the back of the board. As I said, I already test fitted my clamp, so I'm pretty certain how I'm going to put that back together once we get this on there. I'm putting it on a little bit thicker on the back of the fretboard. Not my funnest job. I generally don't like to do this sort of thing, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Again, don't put it on too thick, but enough that you can slide it around a little. We're going to get squeeze out, and that's what we want because it's going to tell us that it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's already starting to get tacky. It's already starting to get tacky. So let's get it on there. I would like to not get any glue on top of this thing if I can avoid it. Yeah, it's moving nicely still. There. I left the smallest little lip of old paint just to know where to stop there. I know my head is in the way, but I really do have to inspect this closely. I think we are ready. The first one I'm going to put in is in here. Have this positioned right about there. I had it hanging over a little bit on that end. Thunder boomer. Getting ready to thunder and lightning outside here. I like that. I like that. It looks pretty good. We're starting to get some squeeze out. That is about where I had it before. Getting some squeeze out. Next, I'm going to put a coal underneath the back side here. Just something to keep it off of the wood, the clamp itself. That feels good. So far, I like that. It's good there. It's good there. Getting some squeeze out. Getting some squeeze out. That's what I like. And it's tight. A little bit more right here and here. I think I can live with that. What are we looking like over here? It's tight. Yeah, it's tight. We're getting some squeeze out. I like to see that because I know we're mating. And it's not a perfect mating surface, so we can only get what we can get. We can only get what we can get. Next. What I'm trying to do is cheat that little overhang as much as I can and split the difference. And I've got it where I think I like it. Yep. It's tight. Yeah. A little bit of squeeze out right there. get our last clamp on. Actually, it's not our last clamp because I am going to put one other clamp right on the very tip. Squeeze out there. Yeah. Nope. This is what happens when you clamp it down. It tries to walk on you a little bit, and that's what you got to be really careful of. Once it dries, that's better. Ah! Need more than one hand. I need more than two hands, I should say. Cheated it just enough to where it's splitting the difference on that overhang. A little bit on this side and a little bit on this side, and that's just going to have to be what it's going to be. Yeah, it's raining. It is coming down. The problem is that the fretboard is actually shrunk a little bit smaller than the actual wood of the neck. So I'm trying to split that difference so it's not too much on this side and too much on that side. That way later on I can clean it up. Hopefully. I'm going to pause here. Well, I want to shift it a little bit. I'm going to pause. I'll be right back. Okay, so off camera, it took me a couple of minutes. I did loosen up these three and shift that board, and that's what will happen when you glue this down. They tend to try to, as you put pressure on it, it will tend to try to walk on you one way or the other, and you have to be very, very cognizant of that. I want the smoother matchup on this side because that's the playing side. Okay, that's where your hand, as if you're holding the guitar. there is just the slightest little bit of overlay on this side where the actual neck is just a micron, and I'm talking about a fraction of a millimeter on this side, where that's not where you play. You play on the other side, and that's the one I wanted smoother and more flush. And it took a little bit of coaxing, but I got it there. And that's it for today, folks. I just wanted to kind of show you this process. 100-year-old acoustic parlor guitar that we're remarrying the fretboard to the neck. We'll talk soon.